Does Airbnb actually make you money? So Airbnb started in 2008, kind of pure chance, where the official founder ended up going to stay somewhere, couldn't find a hotel, and then ended up staying with some friends and paying a bit of money for the room. And so the idea of Airbnb come to fruition. The idea, of course, is the cost of living's gone up, all of these sort of stresses on the world, and there's a nice opportunity to make a little bit of extra income renting out your spare room on a nightly basis. So that was the whole concept of it, and it's kind of a far cry from that, actually, where it's kind of become the nemesis of hotels out there, trying to take on the man, if you like, and pretty much every city that Airbnb go to, they get some major pushback, with some cities around the world completely shutting them down. In London, you've got the 90-day rule where you're not allowed to Airbnb your property out for more than 90 days a year. So is it really worth it? Well, yes and no. So let me go through the pros of Airbnb. So Airbnb, I think if you've got a spare room in a location that you can make some extra money on, I think it's a great opportunity to have somebody rented. Maybe you want to go traveling for a couple of months and you want to rent out your property and make a few £1,000s whilst you're there. I think that's a great opportunity. But that's not really what it's become. In fact, an overwhelming majority of Airbnb listings, and if you don't know what Airbnb is, it's basically serviced accommodation where people might as well be an independent hotel for each property. And that's what a majority of it is. And that's where the kickback has been from people around, because they don't want to know that their flat below and flat below above where they live is being rented to random people on a nightly basis. So it has an impact. But the pros of this is, if you get it right, you can actually have somebody paying you a per night basis, which is going to be way more than a rental income. For example, if I rent out a 2-bed property, say a flat in Leeds, I could rent that out for about £900 a month, maybe £850 for a nice flat. Or I could rent it out for £100+ every single night. So if you look at that, you're kind of going, well, that could be very, very good. All I really need is to rent it out for maybe 10 nights and suddenly I'm making the same money, right? Well, not quite that. But in general, you can make a lot of profits on a monthly basis if things go right. So Airbnb is great, right? No, it fucking isn't. There's a lot of downsides. Get your pens and papers ready. So in theory, it's all great if you rent it out again and again and again and again and nothing goes wrong. But does stuff go wrong? Oh boy, it does. So first of all, you're only going to get those occupancy rates in the height of the summers, okay? The summer period for most service accommodation, Airbnb, is where it's going to be packed out. But actually, if you look at most of the winter months, there's a lot of empty properties. And then you end up getting a bit desperate, so you rent it for one night at a time. You've got your cleaning charges, you've got your management charges, and suddenly it all deteriorates. And I know people that make like £10,000 profit and then lose it all over the winter period. I'm not saying every property, by the way. But one big thing is you can go into an investment like service accommodation, Airbnb properties, and think that there's going to be continuous profit. And it's just not the case. So you really need to do your due diligence and factor all of that in. The next thing is not just occupancy rates, the costs. The costs, because it's such a niche industry, are so high if you want to get anywhere near getting to a passive income. For example, management. I know management agents of service accommodation charging 18%, 18 plus VAT. In fact, I know management companies where they, as a management company, make more profit on the property than the owner of the property. What? That's absolutely mad, right? Well, there is a lot of effort, and that is a sign of how difficult it is to even manage a property. Think about it this way. You need to ID every single guest that comes in. Let's say there's an average of 2 guests per week. Then you need to check their ID. Then you need to get them checked in. Now, you could do it remotely, but then they forget the code, their phone dies, and all of these sort of things. You need to go out to the property and do it. And then they go there and they go, oh, something's wrong with the property. Now you need to fix it. Then, of course, they've then left the property, and then you need to do a turnover. So the whole apartment needs to be cleaned again. All of the linens need to be washed. You've got the cost of extra linens because the person's coming the next day. So you can't just go wash them, get them dry cleaned, all of that, and then put them on. You need a new set on there whilst you go clean them. And that's assuming nothing actually goes wrong. I.e., wouldn't an Airbnb be a great place to throw a party? Yes, as do a lot of people. I've heard of the horrible things that happen at parties at Airbnbs costing tens of thousands of pounds. And then, of course, you're going to try to pursue that 18-year-old, 19-year-old that threw the house party, fat chance of getting that money back. Then you've got the complications of where is your Airbnb? Is it in a house? Is it in a flat? Most Airbnbs, and you can look this up on Airbnb, are in flats and they are run illegally. What? How are they run illegally? Well, first of all, most flats in the UK, if not all of them or a majority of them, are leasehold properties. What that means is you must have freeholder permission in order to do short-term rentals on the property or holiday let rentals on the property, which an overwhelming majority do not have. Now, is it likely that's going to get pulled? No, being real about it. But if the freeholder does, they are voiding their contract within that. So they end up running these Airbnb services illegally. On top of that, mortgages. You cannot have a buy-to-let mortgage or a residential mortgage and rent out the whole place on an Airbnb. It is voiding it. Now, is it illegal? I actually don't know if that's the terminology I'd use, but it is definitely voiding the mortgage. Is it likely to come to fruition that you're going to get kicked? No. However, if your mortgage company finds out that you are doing this on a nightly basis, they have a right to pull the mortgage. Hopefully this is kind of sinking in that it's not quite as simple as most people make out. There's a lot of other things to consider within this, like who else uses an Airbnb? I'll say it like this. Who out there has a benefit of renting a place for a single night? And I'll let your imagination flow. And what sort of complaints can come of that? All right. And by the way, that's very, very common. Those individuals I'm talking about actually look after the property very well. It's the neighbors that have a problem with that demographic renting a property for the night. Again, let your imagination go, right? So all of this is really exciting. I guess it really comes down to, well, what's my personal opinion of SA? Do I have SA? Is it a good investment? And the answer is yes, I do have service accommodation. And yes, we do pretty well some months. One service accommodation, we bring in about £20,000 a month on there. And then I'll have months where I lose £5,000. Okay. Now, why is it good? Why is it bad? In general, if you can reach 70% occupancy plus, and you might think that's really easy, to give you an idea, less than 25% of Airbnb properties hit that 70% occupancy rate. So very unlikely. If you're willing to put in the effort and do that, then it's great for you. But you need to do all of this research. So for us, the only reason I invest in service accommodation is I do it with joint ventures. So I fund the properties personally and they manage the whole thing. Okay, they take care of all of day-to-day because it is a huge undertaking. So it's not that I have a problem with service accommodation at all. I think it's great for you if you've invested in your knowledge around service accommodation. I mean, gone on like a few different courses, not just the ones telling you about how good it is, telling you about all of the pitfalls. I think it's great if you have got the flexibility. Like, I personally do not think you can run a serviced accommodation if you've got a full-time job. Like, no way whatsoever you're going to be able to do it unless you've got a great management agent. And a great management agent is going to be charging you about 18% for a really, really good service. So it's not that you can't do it, but please do not be delusional that this is a low money in. Especially if you're doing rent to SA, you're probably breaching a freeholder contract if it's a leasehold, and breaching the mortgage contract if you've got a mortgage on it. So you must get, or if the landlord's got a mortgage on it, you must get the specific mortgage for it for service accommodation or short-term lets. You need to get freeholder permission if it is that, and then you have to be expecting lower occupancy rates, and you need to be unique. So would I do it? Yes, I think it's a great strategy if you've got the time, you've got the experience to go all in. But what I would give you guidance on is be unique. If you're just going to get a basic apartment over the road from a hotel, why would they pick you over the hotel? And more importantly, why would they pick your Airbnb over somebody else? I recommend doing something quirky, doing something unique that's actually going to facilitate a certain market. So for example, if you're going to hit the contractor market, that's great. You want to go to hotels on a Wednesday night and see if there's loads of vans in the parking lot. That's going to be a really good indication that there's a lot of development going on in the area and companies are paying for hotels for their team. So you change it slightly. If it's the tourist market, how are you going to hit them? If it's long-term contractor market, how are you going to hit them? Have a USP, a unique selling point that you can take out. So if that is for you, put SA in the comments. I'd love to know how many of you are willing to go all out, get educated, and make this a full-time role. That's amazing. You are property entrepreneurs, not property investors. They are very different things. A property investor, I would say I'm a property entrepreneur, and that's my deal packaging business. And I'm also a property investor, and that's where I invest in other people and boring, vanilla buy-to-let properties. True property investors, they are not obsessed with making an extra couple of grand a month or whatever it is over the year. What they're looking for is long-term stores of wealth that is going to go up through time. And the single best investment you can make for that is boring, vanilla buy-to-let. And by the way, depends who you are. If you're watching this and you're ready to get active and all of that, then this could be great for you. Whereas if you're watching this and going, no, I've got 100 grand, I've worked really hard for it, I need it to be in a really safe place that's going to pay me for generations, then really I'd be looking at boring vanilla buy-to-lets. And if that is you, but you don't have the time or experience and you want to be as hands-free as it can possibly get, then put APG in the comments, or I'll put a link, tag it to the top, and then you can fill in your details. And what I'd love to do is have a free one-to-one consultation session, understand where you're at, where you want to get to, and then if we feel it's a right match, I'll help you build that boring vanilla buy-to-let portfolio. I hope this has been valuable for you. It was about sharing my opinion on it. And my opinion is SA is great if you're willing to do all those things. And it's definitely not for you if you're looking for a hands-free passive income, okay? Hopefully you got value. Hit the like button if you did. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as I said, if you want me to help build your portfolio, put APG in the comments or click the link, and I'll see you in the next video.